Welcome to Canning What You Grow. This is put on by the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. I'm Holly Baird. We're going to cover a number of things in this series, starting from something as simple as hot water bath canning all the way to pressure canning. Some of these terms and ideas may be new to you, and some of them may be very familiar to you. Today we're going to talk about water bath canning basics, or also known as boiling water bath canning. The first thing you need in any canning situation, whether you're pressure canning or hot water bath canning, is you need mason jars. And you want to use real mason jars that are made for canning. If you're not sure, you can definitely, it'll say on their mason. And if you're still not sure and you're buying them at the store, in the package it'll say home canning and storage. So you want to make sure that they're mason jars. Again, if you're not sure, you should be able to see mason. They're usually pretty thick. And if you buy them like at a rummage sale or something, just make sure you look, for that mason sign on there, because that'll be the best indication for you. You do not want to use like your spaghetti sauce jar or your mayonnaise jar or, peanut butter jar or something like that. You want to make sure that they are real mason jars. So, with that being said, then you also need the two-piece lids. They do have reusable lids now that they sell, but these are basically the thing. You get the band and the lid. You don't want to reuse, your jam that you bought at the store, lid or whatever, because that is not the safe and proper method. So the two-piece lid's pretty easy. This goes on here, and then this goes on here. And we'll talk more about that in a minute here. So what can you can in a boiling water canner? You want to can high acid foods. So basically any fruits, and then things like figs and tomatoes, you do add an acid, and that helps so that it is a high acid food then. If you want to can meat or beans or different vegetables, then at that point then you would need a pressure can. So these are some items that we have canned. We have some watermelon honey that we made. There is some strawberry ginger jam. We have some apple jelly, tomatoes, and some pickles. So a lot of the stuff that you may grow a lot of, like cucumbers and even zucchini, you can make zucchini relish, or you can make zucchini pickles, and then tomatoes. And if maybe you have some apples or berries or some sort of fruit in your garden or close by where you go pick it, you can also can that as well, and that you can preserve for the winter. So with that being said, one suggestion I have is to get the Ball Blue Book and Guide to Preserving. This will give you a lot of great information you need and could definitely use, especially if you're really, really new to canning. And it's a great manual here. It talks about high acid foods, low acid foods. It talks all about pressure canning, boiling water canning. It talks about the altitudes, especially if you are, so many feet above sea level, it's going to take you longer to can certain items. Another suggestion I have for you is to get yourself a binder. You may print some recipes off of the internet or something, and so we have a binder here. And since we have a dehydrator, we keep the manual for the dehydrator, we keep the manual for the pressure canner, and there's a couple of different things in there so that everything is all in one place, so when it comes time to can, you are set to go. So that's kind of some basics there. Now, there's some basic tools you want when you're canning, whether it be pressure canning or hot water bath canning, and one is a funnel. And the funnel is nice because it helps you get the items into the jar more effectively. You're going to get, all of your fruits or whatever into the jar. That way you're not spilling all over the place. Another one is the plastic spatula that has the headspace measurements on it. And when you're looking at a canning recipe, it's going to tell you how much headspace you need. So you just simply use this. And finally, it's good to have, or actually not finally, it's good to have the jar lifting tongs. They're nice for lifting the hot jars out of the canner, putting the jars in the canner. It also ensures sanitation so that you're not touching the jars before they're filled with your hands that could possibly be dirty. And then there's the magnet wand, because you're going to put your lids in warm water to soften the rings on them. So this is nice because it helps lift the lids so that you can not burn your fingers. Get them on there, and then you're able to can more effectively. And again, that could be for sanitary reasons as well. So when you first get started with canning, you also need a canner. And you can find canners at a lot of places. If you have a farm supply store, they usually will have them there. Some hardware stores will have them as well. And sometimes you can find them at rummage sales. But this is a canner. And maybe you don't have a canner, or maybe you're not going to do a lot of canning, you don't want to buy a canner. What you do want to make sure is that if whatever pot you do use, first that you have a rack that you can put on it. So either you can make a rack out of canning lids, or just knives, just like regular butter knives, and put them on the bottom, because you want to make sure the jars are not touching the bottom of the canner directly. So this is a canner, and you also want to make sure that your jar, whatever jar you're using, is going to be covered by water by at least an inch. So in this case, as you can see, once we get them all submerged in there, it's going to be covered by water, and that's a quart jar. Now, the other thing you might want to do is, where we live, we have hard water. So if you want to add like a tablespoon of white vinegar, just regular vinegar, to your water, it'll help prevent getting all that sediment buildup. Let's talk about the process. One is you want to make sure you have a reliable recipe. With that being said, like you can have the Ball Blue Book. And then you also could go to the website like the National Center for Home Food Preservation. If you have a local master canner for your county, you can contact that person. If you find a recipe online, you can contact your local extension and they can tell you, and maybe you're not sure if that's a good recipe to use or not, you can contact your local extension and they can tell you where the nearest master canner is. And that's a good way to verify your recipe as well. Other great sources for recipes are, there's a Facebook page and a website for SB Canning, and I'll put all these links in the show notes for you so that you can find that information as well. So those are some good trusted sources for recipes. If your grandmother gives you a recipe that her grandmother passed on to her and her grandmother passed on to her, you might not want to use it. You probably want to get it checked out. A lot of things have changed in the whole sanitation process, so you want to make sure you're using a good, reliable recipe. Now, you always want to make sure that you have everything clean. All your tools are clean, your workspaces are clean, your jars are clean, and then also you want to make sure that your jars are warm whenever you're loading them up with the food, you want to make sure that they stay warm. Otherwise, if they are room temperature and you put them in the hot water bath, they can crack and break, and that's not fun to clean up, especially if it's something like sticky jam. So that is some basics. Basically, you just fill your water bath canner with the water, get that started. Then you want to make sure that your jars are sterilized, ready to go. You want to make your recipe and make sure that before you get started, you read the recipe and make sure you have everything you need, spices or vinegars or whatever. Make sure you have all the stuff that you need, especially if you're making jam. You want to make sure you have the gel and things like that. So just read through your recipe, get yourself familiar with it, and then make sure that it's a reliable resource. And before you know it, you'll be canning a lot of items. I'm Holly Baird, and this has been Canning What You Grow. To get more information, you can go to our website, which is thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. We'll be putting these videos out every Friday, so you can learn more about canning what you grow.